City streets and freeways, sidewalks and parking lots, bridges and buildings, cars and concrete everywhere. This is urban city life. In parts of Southern California, like here in Santa Ana and all throughout the U.S., tens of millions of people live in communities with all these urban characteristics, commonly referred to as concrete jungles. And within these concrete jungles are what's known as urban heat islands. Urban heat islands are victims of the sun and all the concrete, gravel, sand, steel, and glass of a city. This combination can lead to temperatures far higher than the actual temperature of a city as registered on an air temperature thermometer. So say, for example, it's a scorching 100-degree summer day in Southern California. The temperature in some of these urban heat islands in various SoCal cities could register well over 110 degrees, leaving many people vulnerable to heat illness or death. Every year, there are news reports from all over the country documenting tragic loss of life due to extreme heat in places like assisted care facilities, nursing homes, and apartment complexes, where these tragic cases are happening routinely everywhere from Los Angeles to New York.
This morning, an extreme heat wave sweeping across the western United States.
We are used to sun in Southern California, but the heat is catching many off guard.
Parts of LA County will once again see temperatures above 100 degrees this afternoon.
The oppressive heat waves now gripping our nation are not only hotter, but also deadlier. Hundreds lost their lives, and according to one report, most died alone in homes with no working air conditioning or fans.
These urban heat islands affect disadvantaged communities, poorer people, and the homeless, for example, more so than others, and in cities where there is less park and green space, fewer trees, and far fewer options for shade.
In more natural spaces, you would have greater concentration of trees and other types of vegetation, and those both provide shade and also evaporative cooling, and we don't have that, as much of that in urban areas.
Edith de Guzman knows all about urban heat islands. Edith has a background in urban planning, is an environmental researcher, formerly director of research at the Los Angeles-based nonprofit Tree People, and now a PhD student at the Institute of the Environment and Sustainability at UCLA.
We have asphalt streets, we have asphalt parking lots, we have roofs, we have buildings. So we've created modifications that create opportunities for heat to be retained, built up during the day, and then actually released during the night. We generate our own heat in urban areas, whether it's air conditioning units, car engines, other types of machinery. All of those actually produce and release heat.
Edith works with people from all backgrounds and all walks of life to find climate solutions in urban areas. In addition to all of her research, Edith's work includes everything from demonstration projects to public planning in the fields of urban forestry, heat mitigation, and urban watershed management. Edith co-founded the Los Angeles Urban Cooling Collaborative and currently is the director there. The collaborative is a multidisciplinary national partnership of researchers like herself and expert practitioners from the world of nonprofits, academia, and government agencies to achieve a cooler, more prosperous, and healthier Los Angeles and Southern California. Together, her team is learning as much as possible about best practices to implement urban cooling strategies. Edith says as the average daily temperatures increase, she is greatly concerned about the overwhelming amounts of fatalities from heat stress.
In an average year, extreme heat kills more people than all other weather-related causes combined. So think about lightning, tornadoes, cold weather. In an average year, heat will kill more people than all of those combined. There have been really massive heat waves that have killed many, many hundreds or thousands of people. For example, the historic heat wave of Chicago in 1995 over a few days killed about 700 people just in that area. In Los Angeles County, for example, which is our most populous county of 10 million people, on average, LA County in the summer has about 150 people die each day. When we have extended heat waves is when we really begin to see the impacts on public health and hospitalizations, emergency room visits, and ultimately some of those folks end up succumbing to the heat.
We met Edith de Guzman here in Santa Ana, a city in Orange County, California of almost 350,000 people with the highest homeless population in the OC. Over 70% of the people living in Santa Ana are Latino, and almost 20% of the population is without health insurance. The average income per person here is less than $25,000 a year, and nearly 20% of this population lives in what the U.S. Census Bureau considers poverty. Edith explains that Santa Ana is considered an urban heat island partly due to the city's demography and geography.
Santa Ana is an urban heat island because it's urban. So if you live in an urban area, congratulations, you live on an island, an urban heat island. In the US, that's 80% of the population, but in California, it's more than 90%, and in Southern California, it's even higher than that because we have a really built-out megalopolis of like 20 million people. And so we've created the conditions to retain rather than dissipate that heat.
Populations are disadvantaged when it comes to being affected by heat waves. So with a lot of residents being low income and a lot of Santa Ana residents experiencing homelessness, a lot of signs point to Santa Ana being an urban heat island.
Monica Moet is a Santa Ana resident. This 25-year-old grad student has lived here all her life. Monica is the daughter of a Mexican-American dad and a Korean-American mom. Even as a kid, her parents were concerned about urban heat islands years ago. Monica's dad worked for the Santa Ana Parks and Rec Department his entire life and knew that Monica's health and well-being could be compromised if she didn't spend part of each day in the shade, playing, walking, or hiking in neighborhood parklands and green space areas away from the Santa Ana concrete jungle. And while Monica was afforded this opportunity, she recognized that too many of her childhood friends were not.
A lot of Santa Ana youth have to deal with concrete and synthetic turf, surfaces that don't relieve kids of extreme heat. I was privileged enough to go to a well-funded charter school, and we had a physical education program that was innovative and implemented local green spaces. Only 4% of Santa Ana's land is used for parks and recreation. So much more could be done to help alleviate extreme heat for disadvantaged communities when the city itself listens to its residents and changes the budget.
Today, Monica has dedicated her young life to giving back to her community, and in part, that's finding solutions to the urban heat islands of these concrete jungles. Recently, Monica was appointed as a commissioner for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission for the City of Santa Ana, where she is personally trying to affect change and have her agency be a change agent.
In the next fiscal year, the park deficiency will only increase with the way that the city is planning on budgeting for parks and recreation. The City Council of Santa Ana has a lack of prioritization when it comes to allocating funds to the Parks and Recreation Department. As a commissioner, I want to advocate for community outreach. I want the city to listen to its residents who understand that open green space helps relieve residents of extreme heat.
While Monica Moet is all about using public policy to try and affect change with regards to extreme heat and the Urban Heat Island Challenge, Edith de Guzman is all about the science. Edith insists climate change is a major contributor to urban heat islands, and she also says that wildfires resulting from climate change worsen this extreme heat threat, which she says is putting so many people at risk. Over the past decade, there have been several massive wildfires in Orange County, just south of Santa Ana, especially around the Santiago Canyon and Silverado Canyon areas. And these fires have not just occurred during the summer months. Edith says Southern California has the unfortunate honor of being the North American region where heat-related deaths happen all throughout the year.
We have variable climates. So it's 50, 60 degrees, most days in January, February. And then all of a sudden you have a Santa Ana wind coming in and you've got 3 or 4 days of 95-degree weather. Our infrastructure is not necessarily adapted, but our physiology is also not adapted. So our bodies can get really thrown off. That can really wreak havoc, on the body and its ability to respond to extreme heat. We can make modifications to the urban environment without, asking everybody to move out of the city. We can just equip the city to be better with extreme heat. That means having more opportunities for that heat to be, reflected back out rather than retained. So being really smart about highly reflective surfaces, whether they're pavements, streets, roofs, even walls. Having more vegetation, more shade, evaporative cooling, and just letting folks know that this is actually a very increasingly risky impact that can be experienced in their communities.